Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know this is probably going to be a long video, so we're going to hop right in. A lot of you have asked to see my pregnancy stories, so I'm going to go ahead and give you both at once because they were back to back. So I have a daughter and a son. They're both 5 years old at the moment, and they will be for the next couple of months. Nahla is my daughter. She was born first, and then Jaden is my son, and he was born 9 months later. So that wasn't exactly planned, but let's start with the first one. So her dad and I, well, he's the father of both of my kids, but their dad and I had been together for a little while, and I decided I didn't want to take my birth control pills anymore because I didn't like what they were doing. I didn't like taking them. I told him, and I was like, you know, we either got to wear condoms or we're about to have a baby. And he's like, well, I don't want to wear condoms. And I was like, okay, cool. So I guess we're about to have a baby. So a few months later, we had sex, and we had been out of town. We went on like this little trip together, and we were having sex and stuff. So I would say about 10 days later, when I didn't have my period, I was like, all right, dude, we're probably pregnant. So I took a pregnancy test. Sure enough, immediately it came up positive. It does not take that long. Like, you do not have to wait that long in order to find out whether or not you're pregnant. So I was pregnant, and we were excited. We were gonna be parents, and we were like 20 and dumb, and we didn't know what life was like yet. So I suggest waiting until you're truly prepared, but can you ever be prepared for parenthood? I don't know. So our original due date for little baby girl was in like the middle of December. And so we thought that's when she was gonna be born. And my first trimester was pretty like by the books. I was sick. I had an insanely keen sense of smell. Anything that the kid's dad put on himself, I could smell it. If I didn't like it, he had to go take a shower. Like, we would go to Lush and buy stuff. Once I was pregnant, all that stuff made me want to throw up. The Comforter bubble bar, ugh, it still makes me gag just from the pregnancy. So, so many scents that were just invading me and causing me to want to throw up. So, I did have a lap band. And so they emptied the lap band, and they had unfilled the little bags, you know, the little pillows. They had taken the solution out so it could be opened up, because obviously you do get a lot more nauseous, and you do have morning, afternoon, and evening sickness. And it just made it easier for me to throw up when I needed to, which is gross or whatever. But thankfully I did not throw up a lot, but I was nauseous all the time. It was awful, and I was super tired, always tired. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, I would eat, and I'd be like asleep in bed by like 6 o'clock. And the kid's dad would just like lay next to me, watch TV, play Xbox or whatever. Like, that was his thing. He was there, but I was out like a light, dude. I couldn't do anything but sleep and just feel awful in the first trimester. The second trimester, so much better. I had my energy back. You know, the baby was growing happy and healthy. We got to find out it was a little girl, and everything was great. We had started like packing up, we were moving and stuff, and it just, second trimester is a breeze. Like, it was just beautiful. So it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we ended up moving out, and we got our little apartment and stuff, and we were both working. And one day after work, October 26th, I came home at like 4 o'clock, and I went to the bathroom and I went pee. And when I wiped, the toilet paper was full of blood. And I was freaking out. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, I know this is not right. This is definitely not right. And then I started to feel cramps, or what I thought were cramps, which were actually contractions. And so I knew something was wrong. And so I called the doctor, and I called my mom, and kid's dad was at work. So I did let him know also. I drove straight over to the hospital, and I was in fact in labor. And this was like the day after our baby shower. Thankfully, at least we got the baby shower. You know, because we really needed things, because we were like broke new parents. But I was in labor, and so in order to stop it, they gave me some medicines, and they gave me adrenaline. So they gave me the shot of adrenaline, and I remember it vividly because my mom was there, and I'm this new parent, right? I have this baby growing inside of me, and I'm freaking out because I'm in labor, and I'm only 32 weeks, And I mean, I know children have been born earlier than 32 weeks, but it's not the ideal. You want your kid to be born, you know, 38 to 40 weeks or whatever. Like, you want a full-term child because that's what's healthiest for the kid. And so I was freaking out, and I don't know if you've ever experienced adrenaline. This is like, I'm pretty sure this is what they give Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction, like when she overdoses and they need to bring her back to life, and he shoves the syringe into her heart, you know, through the rib cage or whatever. The rib cage? The rib cage not up there. The breastplate? I don't know. But, you know, and she's like, and she like livens up and she awakens with this adrenaline. Yeah, so you probably felt actual real life adrenaline before, you know, when something scary happens or there's life or death or whatever it is. I feel it when people pound on my door at 3 a.m. and it's just me and the kids and I feel like I'm about to have to kill somebody, like adrenaline, right? So they gave me adrenaline, a shot of it, and my body was just like shaking uncontrollably, and I was sobbing and I was laughing because I couldn't control anything. And it was a wild experience. I ended up staying in the hospital for multiple days because I had started to dilate. I think I dilated 3 centimeters, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 3 centimeters I had dilated, and they were successfully able to stop the progression of labor. And so after a few days, they sent me home on strict bed rest, which, I mean, I had to get up and I had to do things because I was home by myself because the kids had to work. So they sent me home on bed rest, and they also gave me this medicine that is typically used to treat angina. I cannot remember what it's called, but I remember reading and researching what the effects were on the baby and asking, and I know that if taken long term, more than a few weeks, you know, it could really affect the baby in a bad way. And so it was stopping labor from starting, but it was also going to potentially have a negative effect on my child. And so after 2 weeks, I stopped taking it, and within a day, I had started my labor again. So they had given me steroids because their main concern was that her lungs were not going to be fully developed when she was born. So while I was in the hospital, I was given steroids. Multiple times I had steroid shots so that her lungs could be kind of sped up in their development. And you know, once they said that she was probably going to be okay if she was born, you know, at that point, that's when I had stopped taking the medications, and that's when I ended up going into labor. So on November 13th, I woke up and I went to the bathroom and I went pee, and then I, you know, stood up, wiped, did whatever, walked out of the bathroom, felt myself peeing again. I was like, well, that's weird. Went back in the bathroom, changed my underwear, did this like 10 times before I realized, oh, I'm probably not peeing on myself, but what if I am, right? Because that's embarrassing. I don't want to go to the hospital because I can't hold my pee in. So the kid's dad ended up going to work because this was in the morning. I called my mom and she's like, let me call your doctor. And so my mom called my doctor and she's like, yeah, they said you need to go to the hospital, so let's go. So she came and she picked me up, and I'm like, meanwhile, just peeing on myself basically in my yoga pants, right? That's what I felt like I was doing. It just felt like every step was just pee, like pee, pee, pee. I was like, this is disgusting. I had like the thickest pad on of life. I thought it was the thickest. No. You get the thickest pads of your life after you give birth with those mesh underwear. Woo, I was looking for life. Anyway, I went and I was, it was November 13th. I was due December 13th, I believe. So it was a full month early. Nahla was delivered at 36 weeks. My labor had started early that morning at about 7 a.m. I went in and it wasn't progressing the way they wanted it to. I could only dilate to 4 centimeters before I stopped. So they started me on Pitocin, which is a drug that helps to induce labor. And the Pitocin, you know, they started low level and then they went to the absolute highest extremist level they could go to. And my body was just not responding well because it was causing me to tense so much that it would not allow my body to contract, or rather to dilate, and it wouldn't allow the labor to progress. Directions are so much worse.
So much.
Oh, this doesn't.
Adopted by a pet and save a life at the PetSmart Charities National Adoption Event this Friday through Sunday. PetSmart, we love to see healthy, happy pets.
I want this to be After being in labor for so many hours, you can't just remain in labor forever because that's not good for you and your body. And once your water is broken, you really don't, you don't want to be in labor for 3 days after that. Like, you're risking infections and stuff. So I was adamant that I was not going to have any kind of drugs or anything. Like, that was not part of the plan. But they told me that my options were either get a C-section or get the epidural. And, you know, because it was showing, you know, I went through labor, it was probably like, it was at least 12 hours of labor, where my body was feeling contractions constantly, the strongest contractions that medicine could produce. It was agonizing, and it was just awful. It was an awful experience. And it was just, they're like, well, if your body's not gonna progress it, you know, either we're gonna take it into our own hands or you're gonna need something to relax your body. So I got the epidural, right? I decided I'm gonna go with the epidural because the last thing I want is a C-section, especially if there's another option. So I got the epidural, and it didn't work. It did not work. It numbed part of my body, parts, like tennis ball sized parts of my body became numb, and the rest of it did not. So then they came back 30, 45, maybe an hour later, they did it again. And once again, the epidural did not work. So they came back a third time, and this was after hours of it not working and more and more and more labor, and my body becoming more and more stressed with zero progression as far as dilation goes. And so they did it a third time, and that time, by that point, I'd had so much of it inside of me, my entire body was numb.
Dude, look, aren't they big?
Let's see.
They're like dilated.
That's child's play. That's nothing.
That's child's play.
For real.
Just
No,
like
they're not
checking.
even dilated. They're normal.
They're dilated.
This stuff makes me want to throw.
You ain't seen dilated eyes.
What, the oxygen?
Those eyes ain't dilated.
Well, you're gonna be sitting up in probably like 10 minutes.
Oh, what's gonna happen if I fall asleep? I'll fall off the bed.
No.
And then no one will get me back on because my legs are so heavy and I can't move them.
We'll get you back on.
I could not feel anything, and my poor mom and like Davi had to hold my legs up, and they're so heavy. You know, I gained 65 pounds or whatever because I had the lap band, and then when they unfill it, you naturally gain weight after they unfill it. And then in addition to that, I was also pregnant, and so I gained all this weight, and my legs are huge, and I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't pull myself up on the bed. I couldn't do anything. My body was completely numb. So I couldn't feel the contractions, which was the point, but I also couldn't push because I couldn't feel the contractions or anything else. I couldn't like feel the inside of my body to push. So it was really hard. It was a learning experience. It was unlike what I thought it was gonna be like.
9, 10.
Hey now. Okay. Deep breath in and push.
Just do it.
Go.
1, 2, 3,
We're doing shoulders.
4,
We're doing
5,
shoulders.
6,
Breathe.
7, 8,
Go.
9, 10. Oh, look at it, Sarah.
525.
Oh,
Jumping rope in there. A little stunned. Oh, you're perking up.
oh.
Look at her. She's like,
Oh.
yeah, real quick. Put her foot down. I'll let you.
I delivered. I delivered a little baby girl at like 12:35, I think, a.m. on November 14th, which was actually the same birthday as my brother's daughter, except she turned 1 that day, and Nahla obviously was born that day, and they're like little BFFs now, so it's cool, but you know, we have to like work out birthday situations and parties and stuff, but I think they were like a little mad at me at first, but you don't pick what day your child comes out, so she was born, and she was a happy, healthy little girl, and I think she was like 6-7 pounds, somewhere around there. Nahla was like a beautiful little girl. Like, some babies come out and look crazy. I'll tell you about that maybe in a second. Some babies just come out, they're just like the cutest little things. So because I had been in labor for so long, they were definitely concerned that I had experienced, or that I might have infections or, you know, whatever else might be going on. So I was kept in the hospital for a few days extra. And so was she, just to make sure that everything, you know, was on the up and up. And I did tear horribly with Nahla. My babies have big heads, and so I tore like, oh, it was bad. That first poop after having a baby is so bad too. Like, it was so bad. Everything hurt. It hurt. Like, oh, it hurt. And I experienced afterbirth pains after my first child, which I'm told that does not happen until after your second child, and it's essentially like giving birth again, okay? You have those contractions again because like, I think it's because like your uterus is, you know, it's becoming smaller again. Is that why? I'm not sure. You guys can tell me in the comments. But they are horrific, and it's like not until you get home and you have this baby and it's almost like you're in labor again, like those pains again. Mine were extreme. I mean, it hurt like I was in labor. So I mean, I was just up crying, just tears for like 2 whole years, tears for years, tears for 2 years. That's me. So that was Nahla, right? And I came home and I was attempting to nurse, and it turns out, this is a whole different video if you guys want like a nursing experience and sort of what I figured out and you know, psychologically kind of some of the things that you might go through. But if you want something like that, you can let me know and I'd be happy to do a whole separate video because I had an extremely hard time. And so naturally though, I believe if you're nursing and stuff, that's kind of a good way to prevent your body from becoming pregnant again. It's not, you know, foolproof, but I had been nursing initially with Nahla and attempting to at least. So I thought that I couldn't get pregnant right away. So when we went in for the 5-week checkup, which like I said, Nahla had just torn me to bits, okay? I mean, I had like, my nipples were chapped and sore and bleeding, my vajay was bleeding, everything was awful afterwards. Like, oh, pregnancy is really, men are lucky that they don't have to go through that kind of stuff because it is insane what pregnancy can do to your body. And your body's so resilient. It's amazing what it can go through. So at the 5-week checkup, she said, you are good to go. You are perfectly fine. She didn't mention anything about being, you know, more fertile than usual or anything like that. She didn't mention anything about birth control. I did not like that doctor. She's my mother's doctor, and that's good for her because my mom's like much older and not gonna have a kid or anything, right? So she is not my gynecologist anymore. She's definitely not my OB either. Not that I need one right now, but anyway. So she didn't mention anything. We went home. It had been months and months and months since we'd had sex because of the bed rest and the pregnancy being deemed high risk and everything. Like, we just weren't having sex, obviously. And then once you have the baby, you're not having sex. So we decided, let's give it a shot. And it was excruciating, okay? It was excruciatingly painful, and it was awful. And anyway, though, he climaxed, he finished, and he put that baby in me that day. So at my 5-week checkup that night, I got pregnant. So we found out a couple months later, and Jaden was very much the same. So first trimester felt very much the same. The only difference with Jaden is that our relationship, mine and the kid's dad, our relationship definitely took a darker turn. It took a turn for the worse. It was tumultuous. It was emotionally, that was the most painful time of my life. Psychologically, emotionally, mentally, just in general, it was the hardest time that I have ever gone through in my entire life, is that pregnancy. So I think that has to do with, I'll get into it, but just let that be known. So we got pregnant, and so I very much felt very tired, and I had the same, you know, nausea and the issue with smells and stuff. And I also had this new baby. So they wanted me to take it easy because from the first day, Jaden was a high-risk pregnancy. Because of my experience with Nahla, any future pregnancies, essentially, it's going to be deemed a high-risk pregnancy. And so Jaden was high risk, so I saw specialists. I think it's maternal fetal medicine. I saw them more often than ever. I had extra ultrasounds. I had constant testing, stress testing, all kinds of testing. I was constantly at the doctor's office all the time because they were very much concerned with my second pregnancy that it would go similar to the first or worse. And so they were trying to prepare for that and trying to make sure, you know, I had an amazing doctor. She is still my gynecologist to this day. She is amazing. She actually delivered Nahla because my doctor at that time wasn't available. So she actually delivered Nahla. And then she didn't end up delivering Jaden because she wasn't available that day, it was funny because she was actually my doctor then, and then she didn't deliver that baby. But anyway, so all of that was normal. And then towards the middle of the relationship, we went through, or towards the middle of the pregnancy, the second trimester, again, I gained some of my energy back and stuff. Even though I had this little tiny baby, you know, to take care of, I still was able to get more energy, and it was you know, a lot easier than the first trimester. Less tired, less nauseous, basically, less throwing up and stuff. But I ended up getting an ear infection. Now, children get ear infections all the time, and they can be severe in children, but from what I've seen, when adults get them, they can be like really, really severe sometimes. And so that's what kind of ended up happening with me. I think because I really wasn't able to take care of myself, and I was just in a bad place. I was going through a lot. I was depressed. It was tough. It was tough to have a new baby and be alone all the time, and then also be pregnant. So I ended up getting an ear infection, which, I would wake up with pools of blood on my pillows because of how much my head was draining, and I never felt such pain in my life. Like, your head is just, I was sobbing all the time, just in tears, not able to function. Meanwhile, we got this baby. It was not, the world doesn't stop just because something's wrong with you. That baby still needs you. So then I was also pregnant, and you're not able to take normal medicines and stuff, when you're pregnant. But I ended up being prescribed quite a bit of very strong medicine while I was pregnant, because they needed to kill this, freaking infection that was inside of my head. And they did eventually, and it was awful though. The medicine, I felt so guilty taking it, because I didn't want it to hurt the baby, but I also didn't, I could not function. I'm serious, my ears were bleeding. Like, it was just the worst pain I've ever felt before. So that happened in the middle of the pregnancy. And then, like I said, it was high risk, so I spent a lot of time going back and forth to the doctors, and they made sure to give me steroid shots. They gave me some shots so that it would progress his lung development, just in case. I was on bed rest, but how much bed rest can you be on when you have, a 7-month-old baby and you're the sole caretaker of this child because, their dad was at work all the time? So, it was really hard, and I ended up, surprise, surprise, going into labor early again. So this time my water broke again. I had my water break both times. A lot of people, despite what you see on movies and TVs, most women do not have their water break on their own at home. But both of my pregnancies, I had my water break, and that was the first sign of labor. So this time I was like laying in a bed, and I was just kind of like sitting there kind of playing with my stomach and pushing on my belly a little bit, and I ended up popping my water. But my bag was already bulging. I knew that. I already knew the bag was bulging. I walked around that whole pregnancy being dilated. So we knew that baby was going to come early. That baby was not going to wait. So he came after the baby shower too. Woo woo. And, so we got some new stuff again. It was bad. We had a tiny apartment, and we moved in just the two of us. We moved out the four of us. But anyway, I went into labor, and then, my mom came and got my daughter, and I went into labor at, I was in the hospital probably 7 o'clock at night. Within 5 hours, I think it was 5 hours. Was Nahla born at 12, or was she born at 5? I think Nahla was born at 5. She was. Nahla was born at 5:30 in the morning, because it was nearly a 24-hour labor with her. And then Jaden was born at 12:30 at night. That's what it was.
Good job, buddy. All right. You take a couple. I'm gonna cut him real fast. Good. Come on, buddy. Okay. Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, Jaden was born about 5 hours into labor, and he came out very quickly. And because of the experience that we had had prior, they did put me on Pitocin and everything again, and my body again did not progress. And so, they're like, let's do what we gotta do. So they gave me an epidural. Again, the epidural did not work, so they gave me another epidural. So 5 epidurals in, okay? In those 9 months, I got 5 epidurals. And I think that has to do with my back pain, although some other people disagree with me. I think it has to do with it, because I have obscene lower back pain. But anyway, he came out very quickly, and that may attribute to his torticollis that he was born with, but he was covered just head to toe in bruising. He was black and purple, and he was very bruised up. He was darker than Nahla, and initially I thought he's just darker than her just because he's darker than her, his skin is darker than her. But no, it was a lot of bruising because he came out so fast. So that was different. The whole vibe in the hospital room was different. Everything was very different with Jaden. But he was good. He was a healthy baby who was also born at 36 weeks. So they were both born at 36 weeks. They were both a month early. And Jaden was also born with torticollis, which was later fixed through physical therapy, which he started when he was about 8 months old. But it basically means that the muscle here in your neck is super, super, super tight. Like, you can't just push the head open or push the head up and that's done. Like, he had to have physical therapy for like 6 or 8 months, I think, where every day she would push him and do these exercises, and she would tape his head to his other shoulder, and it was awful. It was like so bad for him. I mean, it was hard to watch him. But so he was born with torticollis, which they think, you know, might have been because of the way he was delivered, or just the way he was positioned while he was in my belly. But Jaden also had quite a few breathing issues, as when he was a baby, he was sick all the time. He cried all the time. He was sick constantly. We always had him on nebulizer treatments. He was always doing breathing treatments. He was always getting sick, and he couldn't fight the sicknesses. So he's definitely a much more sickly child than Nahla. And now that he's gotten a little bit older, I mean, just last November, he had pneumonia. He was hospitalized for a while. And he was diagnosed with reactive airway disease, which is essentially asthma. I guess before you can call it asthma, like before you can do the proper testing to find out if it's asthma. So he does have reactive airway disease. We have a nebulizer here at home. When he gets sick, it's not like when Nahla gets sick. Nahla can take a fever reducer or something, and, you know, or a cough suppressant even at this point, at this age, and she gets better. Jaden does not. Like, his oxygen level drops into the 80s, which is very dangerous. And so, you know, we have a little oxygen thing to put on his finger to check and stuff. And he has to do the breathing treatments, and he has to go to the hospital. And so he is definitely not as healthy as Nahla is. I can't say exactly why that is. He was born that way. He was born just with a weaker immune system, and we thought he would grow out of it. He even has more, you know, he was like lactose intolerant. He just can't take as much as Nahla can. So I have a feeling that it's probably because of the things that I was going through while we were pregnant. You know, the way that you treat your body while you're pregnant is so important, because your body is their body. You know what I mean? It's where they're getting every single thing. So everything you're exposed to, they're exposed to. And so I think that has something to do with it. I try not to really dwell on all that too much, because what can you do at this point, you know? But if you guys want to see more on sort of, I guess, the psychological things, and dealing with like depression and stuff, and dealing with just hardships with, you know, within the pregnancies and nursing especially, there are a lot of emotional things that you go through. There are a lot of changes that happen in your body, and there are just a lot of things that you can't even control. I mean, you're so pumped full of all these new hormones, and you're a whole different person during these times. And you know, it was still amazing. It was an amazing thing, and our bodies are so resilient, because both of them ruined me. They just ruined, like, oh my gosh, everything was so painful. And the afterbirth pains after Jaden, who was my second, right, they were insane. Like, never have I felt something like that. I mean, outside of actual labor. So it's crazy, those pains that you feel after you've already given birth and gone home. So I think that's it. I think that's all that I have to say. I hope that gave you guys sort of, you know, what you were looking for. Oh, a lot of you do ask me about weight, like, oh, were you shamed, or do they tell you not to gain weight? I have really amazing accepting doctors, and I do not accept anything less than that. I will not be mistreated by a doctor. I will not be told, you know, you're gonna talk to me correctly, or you're not gonna talk to me, period. So I have very respectful doctors, and you know, they were, obviously I was aware I was overweight already, and so they wanted me to be aware of what I was eating and making sure that I wasn't, you know, gaining too much weight. But once I had the babies, the only way that I could escape them for just a sliver of time, okay, the only way that I could have time to myself, because their dad ended up leaving and he joined the Navy, and so he was gone for a while there. And I had these 2 little tiny babies, right, to take care of all by my lonesome, was to go to the gym. So I ended up going to the gym like 5 days a week, because they would watch the kids for 2 hours, and I would go for the full 2 hours, and just to have my sanity. And so I ended up losing all the weight and then some. So I ended up being even smaller post the babies than I was prior to the babies. So yeah, that was never an issue. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was long. I know I talk fast. I'm sorry. But if you have any questions or anything, or if you have, you know, anything to add, I guess, down in the comments. You know, this is my story. This is my life. This is how it went for me in my pregnancies. Everyone's obviously going to be different, and I'm sure everyone has their own ideas and everything, but I want to say before people become disrespectful in the comments, because it does usually happen at some point, is that you only know what I have just said to you, and what I have just done is in these 25 minutes or whatever, I have condensed what was 18 months of my life into 25 minutes. So there's obviously a lot of things that were not mentioned, but hopefully this was a good overview for you guys and you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed all the little clips and everything that were inserted here. But I hope that you're having a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.